Throughout the millennia, the Time Lords of Gallifrey led a life of peace and ordered calm, protected from all threats from lesser civilizations by their great power. But this was to change, suddenly and terribly. The Time Lords faced the most dangerous crisis in their long history. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the legendary, the deadly assassin, written by Robert Holmes and directed by David Maloney. This is a 4-part adventure, and it breaks a lot of firsts for the series. It's the first story to be set on Gallifrey. It is the first story where the Doctor has no companions. In fact, the story is still very unique, as it doesn't even have a companion surrogate, which would be common in New Who when they have like a one-off companion. It's the first story in which every character is of the same species, the Time Lords. It's the first story to see a regenerated version of the Master. Robert Delgado played the first incarnation that we know of, but this evidently implies that he was one of the later incarnations of that particular Time Lord. It's the first story to mention the 12th regeneration cycle, meaning that Time Lords have 13 bodies and then they permanently die. It's the first mention of Rassilon. It's just a lot of firsts. And the thing to note about this story is that when it came out, it was absolutely hated by the Doctor Who community. I mean, it was so controversial. Some of the criticisms included ruining the mystery of the Time Lords, of their, because before we only got glimpses of them, but now we see them fully, and they're just like normal humans. There's loads of politicians, and they usually bicker with each other, and there's these two particular Time Lords that just constantly talk about this machine that they have, in which they can process and get details on particular Time Lords' DNA. And also for bringing up the 12th regeneration cycle. A lot of fans had their own theories on how many the Doctor can regenerate, from being an immortal, or just don't let us know, and then it keeps the threat that the Doctor might die at any moment a mystery. And this story goes, no, there are 12 regenerations, and this would become a huge staple in the classic series and in the new series. And yeah, these elements were highly criticised. However, throughout the years, I would say maybe 10 years after the story and then afterwards, this story has been praised by the fans as one of, if not the best Fourth Doctor adventure. And it just goes to show that just because something is unpopular now, and it might have elements that true fanboys hate, later down in the line, they might actually be the preferred canon of a particular franchise. And Doctor Who is a massive example of that. But let's get into the story itself. So the Doctor, after the Hands of Fear, has been sent a message from Gallifrey. However, he gets another message in which he sees the death of the President. And so episode 1 is him trying to break into Gallifrey and trying to stop the assassination. The other Time Lords don't seem to realise that the Doctor is so the message wasn't sent by the Time Lords. And right off the bat, this story has some great directing. David Maloney is just a fantastic director. He has such a brilliant legacy. I mean, I can't think of any other Doctor Who director who has such a just a brilliant list of stories under his belt. and this one's no exception. It's a lot of dark and a lot of gloomy, and there's a bit where they capture the Doctor, and he's basically being tortured. And when the camera zooms out, a great effect added in model effects with the actual set makes it look like the set is so much bigger than it is, and I absolutely love it. The story, in terms of directing, really feels like a movie. It even opens uniquely with a title scroll and a voiceover by Tom Baker, and it just emphasizes how serious this story is. And so the cliffhanger to part one is probably really iconic, but I have to say I don't think it holds up particularly well thinking about it, in which the Doctor assassinates. The Doctor is the one who pulls the trigger from the balcony that he sees. But in part two, it's revealed that the Doctor didn't actually shoot the High Council. He didn't actually shoot the President. He's trying to shoot an assassin at the lower decks who shot him, and the Doctor's then been framed. And the Doctor gets tortured in the scene I mentioned, and there's a great moment in which he says, all right, I confess you're a bigger idiot than I thought you were." Brilliant. That's just an iconic scene, and just to see the Doctor just beaten down and for a crime he didn't commit. Although at this point in time, he didn't really know that. And so the Doctor, he goes to the court, and what's happening is that the President was going to announce his successor. He was going to retire, and everybody thought it was going to be Chancellor Goth. I can't remember the guy who plays him. Let's see, was it Bernard Horsfall plays Goth. And what's really interesting about his casting is that he's already played a Time Lord. He played an unnamed Time Lord in the second Doctor adventure, The War Games, heavily implying that Goth is the same character, and he trialed the Doctor. Very cool. I mean, the characters, he plays them in a different way, but it's the same guy, so why not, innit? So Chancellor Goth is thinking, right, he's going to be named successor. He's only the real candidate for the presidency. So before he becomes president, he's going to trial the Doctor and finish him off and hopefully execute him in a rush. But the Doctor enables Article 13, which means that he can run for presidency, and because he isn't convicted as a murderer yet, it is only suspicion. The Doctor is actually freed from execution for a little while, and so he goes out to try and prove that he didn't kill him by looking at the gun, which the Doctor realised didn't shoot in the right angle. It shot on an angle that the gun would shoot, and we also get this mysterious black figure silhouette that helped the Doctor earlier on in the story, in which he was getting captured by a Chancellor Guard. And here we see him murdering one of the cameramen, and he also takes equipment from the camera when the newsman, I can't remember his name, Runcible, finds his body, and the Doctor sees that inside the camera is a small version of the camera operator, and they realise that this was the work of a tissue compression eliminator, although they don't call that here, they call it something else. And the Doctor is like, I know exactly who that is. It's the Master. So that, yeah, very great. Let's talk about the Master. The Master has been recast because Robert Delgado sadly passed away 3 years before this story. And so they got a veteran actor, Peter Pratt, to play the Master. He plays him without any connection to Robert Delgado. He's a completely different personality to the Master. So it's in a way you could consider that criticism. Like it feels like a completely different character. And even like you've got like the mask as well, and it's tortured down. It feels like a completely different character. But however, the story goes out of its way to basically explain that the Master's on the edge of his life, and the only thing really keeping him alive at this moment is just his pure hatred for things, particularly the Doctor. And with that backstory in mind, it does justify this completely different Master, and I think the Master really works in this story. He's in the Philip Hinchcliffe era of Doctor Who. There's a lot of inspirations from classic horror literature and classic horror movies, and here it reminds me a lot of the Phantom of the Opera. The way he's on the top balconies, killing people, doing things from the distance. I mean, there's not a lot of connections that people say he's inspired by the Phantom of the Opera, but I do think there's enough that I personally think I feel like that's where that came from, even if it was unintentional. And so, yeah, so basically the story is this, it's a political thriller in which the Doctor tries to work out why he's been framed and who wants to kill the presidency, and just basically what the Master is up to. And it's just overall, I just can't describe how classic and great this story is. At the end of part 2, the Doctor talks with his 2 Time Lord friends who he's proven that he is not the murderer. And they discover that there's this machine that basically connects all of dead Time Lord knowledge, called the ABC machine. I think it's called ABC. It's ABC something. And which would be the precursor to the Matrix in the 6th Doctor story, Trial of the Time Lord. They never actually state that it's called the Matrix here, but it's basically the exact same thing. The Time Lords use past information to try and predict future. However, as the Doctor points out, it didn't predict the death of the president, but it did in a way, as it was sent to the Doctor and not into the machine. So the Doctor thinks it's been tampered with, and so he sends his mind into the machine, into, I guess you could call the Matrix. Let's just call it the Matrix for now, because a lot of fans consider it the Matrix. Not the film The Matrix, but yeah. And that leads into like part 3, and part 3 is probably the most iconic singular episode of Classic Who, as there's some really great imagery and it's really trippy, and the Doctor is like falling off a cliff, and then all of a sudden a samurai cuts off his scarf as the Doctor screams for his life. There's bits where there's a train coming, and the Doctor's foot gets trapped in the rails, and the train come in, and that's our cliffhanger, which leads into part 3, which is just the majority of it is this battle. And the Doctor then is getting shot down by an aeroplane, and his leg gets shot. Oh wait, there's a few things. One of the most iconic shots is the Doctor in the sand, and he rubs a bit of it away, revealing a mirror. But instead of showing himself, it shows a clown just laughing at him. Very scary. And there's this other character, not the Master. I guess you could call him the Deadly Assassin. And he shoots the Doctor with guns in an airplane, and the Doctor injures his leg. However, the Doctor denies this reality, and so his leg heals because it's not real. But this Deadly Assassin is like, this is my reality, and whatever I say goes. And the Doctor blood, and so the Doctor accepts the challenge of like hunter and prey. So the Doctor's got to survive in this world as the Deadly Assassin has got to kill him for the Master. And it's basically Doctor Who meets Rambo, as you get some sort of traps, and it's just really intense because you don't know who is on top at the moment. Doctor sometimes is on top, and sometimes when the Deadly Assassin leaves his equipment and stuff, he plants a grenade near a line-in and through some trees. But the assassin poisons some water, which he expects the Doctor will drink. And yeah, it just becomes really intense until the very end, in which they're almost neck and neck, and they can basically they can't see each other yet, but they're right by each other. And the Doctor says he will come out if the assassin reveals his face, and so he does, to reveal that he is Chancellor Goth. He is the one running for presidency, and yeah, which makes little sense in so far as why would he want to kill the presidency? He was highly recommended to be the one to take over. And so he works with the Master to try and kill the Doctor, and there's an action scene which leads into the cliffhanger for part 3, in which the Doctor seems to be drowning. And this got a lot of criticisms by parents, board people, and I can't remember her name, Mary Whitehouse, who was like the protector of children back in the day. A very silly lady, and this scene was considered too graphic for a child audience, and it was because of this particular scene, this 1 5-second scene of the Doctor drowning, that the BBC decided that Philip Hinchcliffe will end his era at the end of this season. Don't feel too bad for him. He got a different show. I can't remember what it was. I think it was Colin, or like the Avengers, the new Avengers, or something like that, and was replaced for season 15. But that was a particular scene, and I just want to state this because I found this and it's absolutely hilarious. That apparently Tom Baker was afraid of the reaction it would have on children, because apparently he had a fear of drowning, Tom Baker did. So according to Wikipedia, I don't know how accurate this is, I'm guessing it's not true, but it's according to the TARDIS Wikipedia page that Tom Baker was so frightened at the reaction, he watched part 3 in a quote unquote random family's house and asked their opinion on the cliffhanger, which, that is just too funny to think. I mean, the idea that you're going to get a random knock on the door, you think it's probably the mailman, or you're probably expecting visitors, you open the door and you see British icon Tom Baker asking could he watch Doctor Who with you because the cliffhanger is too terrifying. Come on, I really hope that's true. I highly doubt it, but if it is, please let it be true. So yeah, And then in part 4 then, the Doctor defeats Goth, and the Master is just all annoyed and stuff, and he comes up with a final plan. And so the Doctor works out the Master's base of operations, and just before Goth dies, he explains that he wanted more power. He found out that, or at least the Master found out, that Goth wasn't the run for presidency. It was someone else. I'm going to guess Brucer, because Brucer, I believe we see him later as the president. Brucer makes his first appearance in this. The Doctor's teacher back at the Academy gets mentioned for the first time here. And he's a very typical politician. He would change the truth to benefit Time Lord society. For example, Goth dies and they find the body of the Master, who appears to have been, died just due to the effects of his body just killing him basically. And Brucer decides that the truth is too much for the rest of the Time Lords. So what he's going to do is going to lie and say that Goth found the Master and killed him. He was actually a hero in this story. So essentially what he's doing is Commissioner Gordon in The Dark Knight, and Goth is Two-Face. I wonder if Christopher Nolan was a fan of Doctor Who, and if so, The Deadly Assassin, because that's a very similar plot element. Who knows? Anyway, so the Master is revealed later on not to be dead. He put a drug in himself that would slow his heartbeat so that it's untraceable. And when he's at where all the Time Lords are dead, he steals something from the corpse of the president, what they call the Seal of Rassilon. And the Doctor slowly discovers that the Master had this plan of regaining more regenerations by absorbing the Eye of Harmony, the first mention of the Eye of Harmony. However, here, from later stories, it's explained completely different. Here, it's only now that the Eye of Harmony has been revealed to be real. Before this, there seemed to be just a legacy in Rassilon's story. And what it is that they absorb the soul of a dying black hole, and it keeps the Time Lord energy going, basically, and revealed many secret powers. And it's only one, and it's only on Gallifrey, and it was hidden on a platform. And the Master's plan is that he's going to use this to regenerate himself, but it will also destroy Time Lords, the Doctor, just basically everyone, which leads into a cliffhanger. It leads into a final fight, which reminds me a lot of Flash Gordon, in which you've got these epic punches that make people fall downstairs, and the city around them is crackling, it's cracking, and the Master falls into one of the cracks, and the Doctor saves the day. And yeah, that's what happens with the Deadly Assassin. The Doctor then leaves without no companion, and you see the Master leave in his own TARDIS, and there's a great little moment in which one of the Time Lords is like, they're going to take their battle throughout the universe, which is really strange because the Master doesn't appear for at least 3 seasons, if I can remember correctly. So there you go. So that's The Deadly Assassin. Overall, it's a fantastic piece of storytelling. It introduces so many new aspects to the Doctor Who mythos that I think, apart from, An Earthly Child, this probably has the most introduction to things in the series. It's strange to consider that it wasn't highly loved back in the day. It does ruin the mythos of the Time Lords, of this just godlike entities, and the Doctor just ran away from them. But I do think that in a way it was sort of necessary to ground the Doctor more to a real life society, and the fact that they're all just blumbering politicians just shows why the Doctor wouldn't want to return to Gallifrey. He wouldn't want to stay there. It would be very boring for him if he stayed there. And the 12 regeneration cycle thing, I don't know, I've always grown up with that, so it doesn't, I've never been affected by it, but a few fans, including one by the name of Russell T. Davis, absolutely hated this idea. And there was a fan theory by Russell T. Davis himself in which the 12 regeneration cycle thing isn't a natural aspect. Time Lords could actually regenerate forever, but Rassilon put the limitations on so that they won't become still like the Sisterhood of Khan. So there you go. And obviously we got the Timeless Child now, which is completely retconned that again. And in the Sarah Jane Adventure story, Death to the Doctor, written by Russell T. Davis, the Doctor explains that he can regenerate 907 times. Which, but most fans consider that just a little joke. But there you go. So, The Deadly Assassin, absolutely iconic. Go watch it. It's very well written, very well acted, very well directed. There you go, Deadly Assassin. So join me next time where we finally see River Song meet the Fourth Doctor in a timeline in which the Doctor or River Song's memories have been very altered. So join me next time for Someone I Once Knew. See you next time on The Doctor Who Marathon.